Humanity, I love you all with all my heart, with all my might. I'm so Ray. My videos are about love, infinity, creation, energy, because we're infinite love, infinite energy, infinite creation. So, as you know, I wrote this book called Fantasies and Illusions Compass, The Quest for Infinite Free Will. And this video, I wanna make a video to talk more about fantasies and illusions because it's such an important concept. It really is. It's a title, right, of the book, Fantasies and Illusions, and then Compass, the quest for infinite free will. So it's all important. Compass is the most important thing, is who we are. But to get to who we are, we need to understand fantasies and illusions. And this is why I want to talk about fantasies and illusions once again, because I want to talk about it from a different point of view, from a proto-meta systems properties analysis point of view, using some examples, telemetric thinking, duality principles, so using analogies. So in that way, we can even further discuss the idea of what fantasies and illusions are. So I have made many videos about fantasies and illusions because fantasies and illusions, they're important to deal with. This is fundamental for us to for the quest for infinite free will compass us who we are as a species, our nature, our primary elements, identity and true self, purpose, time and energy, action, why, how, flow, true north and destination. For all these things to essentially for us to be conscious and self-aware of who we are as a nature, infinite love, infinite energy, infinite creation, the human heartbeat, the biological singularity, who we are as a species, right? The highest energy of creation. The biological singularity is the human heart. The human heart, generates the electromagnetic field, the pulse of life, the pulse of creation, the heartbeat, this contraction, this retraction. And this is essentially what gives us life, so we can be conscious and self-aware, so we can create, so we can have a purpose, so we can manifest our free will. So for all these notions to understand them fully, remember, because the way I wrote this book is like a user manual. So this book is a user manual, so we understand ourselves. Because if we were born in these times, we didn't. We're not like, the moment you're born, it's not that you're giving a user manual of how we work and who we are and how we operate and our nature and who we are as a species. So it's essentially, this is not the way these times work. It's just like you have to figure it out on your own. So I have essentially spent my whole life doing this, understanding our nature based on objective reality, truth, to understand who we are. So I have designed this user manual for all of humanity, because my book is free and is available to everyone, because we all humans and we all have a heart and we all have a body, and we're infinite in nature. This is who we are as a species. This is who we are. So, and the reason why we don't have, we at this stage we didn't now we do, we all have user manual now, which is this. But before us, we didn't really know any. It's it was hard, to know who we were, because of the fantasies and illusions, because of all the fantasies and illusions. And this is why I wanna make emphasis on this and talk about fantasies and illusions. And first, let what are they, right? I have made so many videos about it, but I'm gonna make a summary of everything. So what are fantasies and illusions? Well, fantasies and illusions are mediums and media, messengers and messages, within our control and outside our control. These are objects, right, that come into the proximity of our sensory perception. These messages, these messengers, these objects, right, these mediums, these media, outside our control and within our control, but they come within the proximity of our sensory perception, so we actually interact with them, right? That's how we know that they're real and they exist, is because we can perceive them with our senses in reality, because we're consciousness, we're self-awareness, we're intelligence, we're sentient. This is who we are as a species, right? We're a benevolent species. And I have spoken at length about who we are and all these. But so it's just, I want to just focus on fantasies and illusions right now. So if you understand these, then, right, so you understand that these are mediums and media, messengers and messages, outside our control and within our control. These objects that come and interact within our proximity, right, within our perception, our sensory perception, our electromagnetic field. Because if you understand what our electromagnetic field is, that, right, the human heart generates the electromagnetic field, right, and then we're alive as a result. So the primordial instinct of the human species is the instinct to exist, and we exist because of the human heartbeat, the pulse of life, the pulse of creation that generates this electromagnetic field. And the space structure density of this electromagnetic field is us as a species, right? This is who we are. So obviously we have senses, right? This is how we experience reality, sensory perception. And our senses are right next to our brain. This is not a coincidence, because our brain is this processor, encodes and decodes everything. What's encoding and what's decoding? Well, the sensory perception, all the perception that comes through our senses. So we conscious and self-aware, we know that we exist, right? So that's why we have two eyes, and our eyes are right next to, in front of our brains, and then we have ears right next to our brains, right, and a mouth right there, and then we got touch, which is everywhere in our face and our bodies, our skin, and then noses right there in front. So you see the five senses right there, and then we got the sixth sense, which is known as the third eye, which is the pituitary gland and the pineal gland, and they allow us to see beyond the light spectrum and be the traditional spectrum of perception, because it's all these crystallic molecules that allow us to see beyond. When light hits them, you see the sunlight coming into our bodies. There's this piezoelectricity, which is electricity that comes as a result of light and the pressure within crystals. So if you understand this, then we understand, right, that it's sunlight coming in and hitting these glands, and the DMT and the THC, all the crystallic molecules created, that when you hit a crystal, right, the prism, then this light spectrum generates, right? So these crystals are that. When the sunlight hits them, then we see beyond the crystal, so beyond the senses. That's where the sixth sense. And we tap into our DNA and understand our nature, our infinite nature of perception, and we go beyond, right, beyond what our senses can perceive. All the light that is outside our perception and everything, but that's still real, that exists, infinity. And when we become conscious and aware of everything outside our perception, right, traditional perception, then we evolve into that, so our senses can attune to that and see it, and it's called evolution, right? So you see, these are our senses, and our brain is that for a reason. So then let's talk about fantasies and illusions. And the way I want to talk about them is by understanding them. Think of fantasies and illusions as peeling an onion, right? And at the core of the onion is our true self, is our identity, right? The primary element of compass, right? But everything outside is these fantasies and illusions, right? Covering it, layers upon layers of fantasies and illusions, covering, creating all sorts of distortions that do not allow us to know who we are, our nature as a species, because of any number of reasons, right? So this analogy, I want you to think of fantasies and illusions as that. I want you to think of fantasies and illusions as layers of an onion. It's like peeling an onion. So when you start to peel the onion, then you get to the core of the onion, right? The heart of the onion. In this case, that's us, our identity and true self, which is the human heart, knowing that love is the highest energy of creation, that we are a benevolent species, that love is what gives us life, and we live to love. You see, we live to love and we love to live. Purposeful lives, meaningful lives, and everything is the heart. The heart is the most important organ. Without the heart, we wouldn't exist. And everything is about love. Everything is about the heart. And when we understand the nature of our heart, which is the epicenter of our species, the biology of our singularity, the biological singularity is the human heart. You see, that generates electromagnetic field, so we exist. So when we start to understand this, then it's because we peeled away all these fantasies and these illusions. And because we're an electromagnetic field, so we're compass, right? The primary elements are clear. So the first one is identity and true self. So it's the heart, right? Understanding who we are. And because love is the highest energy of creation, it's the highest energy the body generates. So it's energy. So energy shatters. So compass, us, shatters fantasies and illusions, rendering them obsolete. You see, our love is the love of our hearts that renders all these fantasies obsolete, right? All these illusions obsolete. We shatter them with the energy of love, with the energy of the heart, which is essentially recovering, healing, accepting, forgiving, gratitude, moving on. It's evolution. It's just loving ourselves, loving our lives, and understanding that love is the key that unlocks our DNA and unlocks our nature. And by knowing these, that's how we move away from fantasies and illusions. You see, that's how we peel the onion. So we get to the core of it, which is our identity, our true self, our compass, our primary elements, our nature, our sundials, staring at the sun, getting all this energy, infinite energy through our eyes, and evolving. The sun iris nexus, right? Who we are as a species, a human practice. We stare at the sun, we open the portal, we build the bridge. You see, we open our hearts, open our mind, open our eyes, and evolve. Because it's the energy from the sun coming straight into our bodies, allowing us to evolve so we understand our nature, so we can love more with our hearts. Because what fantasies, all these objects, right? All these fantasies and illusions is these objects like this, it's these memories, these messengers, these messages, these mediums, these media. They interact with us, outside our control and within our control. And they're negative energy, they're static, they're friction, they're background noise. And they kind of like these impressions, these events, these experiences form memories. And these memories, because they're negative in nature, they kind of like, they remain in the unconscious mind. And the way we call all these, like the combination of all these memories, all that, right? All this negativity, we call it the shadow. So the shadow is this lifeless form, right? That is essentially just a defense mechanism of all the trauma and all the triggers of all these fantasies and illusions stored in our unconscious mind. Taking up space, taking up energy, because it's friction, it's background noise, it's negativity, it's destructive energy, it's negative cognitive load. Why? Because it's emotions attached, negative emotions attached to memories of events and experiences in our lives, of objects in the way of messengers and messages, outside our control, within our control, mediums and media that interacted with our energy force, our energy field, right, of creation. And these form negative memories in our minds because we're emotions. You see, the highest energy of creation is love, and love gives us heart. So we are emotions, we're sentient, we're consciousness, we're self-awareness, we love, we all these. We're intelligent. You see, we're a very intelligent species. So because of that, you see all these memories and stuff as a result of these events and experiences, when they're negative, with their fantasies and illusions, what they end up doing, they just this negative cognitive load. And when other events trigger them in our lives, then we relieve those memories and the negative. You see, it's holding up, it's all this energy, it's cognitive energy negative. So we need to release them, we need to discharge them, we need to, all these fantasies, all these illusions, they need to be dealt with. We need to dissipate them. So we free up all that energy so we can love. Reclaim so we disintegrate the shadow, right? We disintegrate the shadow, and by doing that, we integrate the unconscious mind into our conscious mind. And by doing that, then that means that all these memories, all these painful events and experiences, they just become that. They just become memories. There is no cognitive load attached to them. So the essence is just the memory. So there's no negative trace or cognitive load, no trace of it. It's just the memory, the essence. And because we're loving it, because we're forgiving them, because we're compassionate, because we accept it, we move on, we heal, we recover, we're grateful for the experience that allow us to understand who we are, they just become even positive. So these memories end up becoming positive memories because we love them. And that's the love of energy, right? And we compass, it's the highest energy of the human heart. So because we're compass with that, we manifest free will, we manifest love with our purpose, with our identity and true self, with our actions, with our time and energy, with why, how we flow, with true north and destination, because it's love that creates everything that allows us to exist. We shatter all these fantasies and these illusions and all these memories, all this negativity, the shadow and all that, it gets disintegrated. So it becomes positive. It's just something that was there to teach us lessons so we can grow and evolve as a species, as individuals, right? So, and this is why, like why am I using the analogy of an onion? Because it's kind of like trauma, right? When you peel an onion, you start crying because we're emotional, right? And these are traumatic events. This is fear-based, hate-based, all this bad stuff, suffering, pain, all this negative stuff, all these memories. And when we start to peel the layers, right? So we get to the core, our identity, and know that love is the key. We cry, and crying is normal. Crying is healing, right? We're recovering, we are accepting, we are grateful for the event, and we move on, right? We're healing, essentially. Crying is a mechanism to heal because we're facing our fears, right? All this negativity in our lives, all these fantasies and these illusions, because we became conscious. We became conscious of our nature, who we are. So that's why I'm using this analogy, right? So let's break it down then further. So we understand that fantasies and illusions are objects, essentially, in the way of mediums and media, messengers and messages, outside our control and within our control, that are events and experiences, right, that take place and they're negative in nature, right? They have a negative cognitive load, and as a result, there is emotions attached to them, and they are memories in our lives. And all this is stored in our unconscious mind, and we call that the shadow. It's all these memories, the collection of all these memories of all these events, these fantasies and illusions, stored in the back in the back of our minds, in the unconscious mind, is what we call the shadow. The shadow is lifeless, but it gets triggered with defense mechanisms. Why? By those memories being triggered because of events and experiences that are traumatic, that reminds us of it, and then we relieve them, right? And then that's it's negative energy, is static, is background noise, is friction, and we need to dissipate that energy, release it, discharge it, so then we can gain up all that energy, free it up, and we can love with our hearts. And how do we do it? With the energy of our hearts, with love, by being conscious of who we are and the infinite energy of our hearts, the most powerful energy in creation, our hearts. And we love with the heart, and then when we love with the heart, we shatter these fantasies, these illusions, and we render them obsolete. So they don't have a hold over us anymore. So we disintegrate the shadow. And then that allows us to integrate our unconscious mind by understanding that those memories were there to teach us lessons. Those events took place so they can teach us lessons. So this is it, right? So let's talk a little bit of it. So, okay, so what type of objects? Well, there's an infinite number of objects, right, in which these fantasies and illusions can kind of come from. Because it's objects that are, coming to in the proximity of our sensory perception, right? Our senses. What we see, what we hear, what we smell, what we touch, what we feel, what we smell, what we touch, what we taste, what we feel, what we hear, what we see. And these events come, right? And these are mediums and media. So there's an infinite number of mediums, there's an infinite number of media, and there is an infinite number of messengers and messages, right? Because we're infinite, and that's part of infinity. So they come within our proximity, so our existence, so our consciousness and self-awareness, so they interact with us in the way of what? Outside our control events and experiences. And eventually they become within our control because they become memories, right? Memories of those events. And also, there is a component that is within our control for outside our control events and experiences, because we can react. It's the way we react to those events and experiences while they're taking place. So we cannot control the events. The events are outside our control. These experiences are outside of control. We cannot control them. We cannot control the objects or the object generating the fantasies and illusions, the negativity, right? The mediums, the media, the messengers, the messages. We cannot control them. But we can, because they come within our perception, we can control ourselves, the way we react to those events, the way we react to those experiences. So those are the two things that we can control. We can control our memories that form as a result of those events outside our control, and the way, which happens after the fact, and then the way we interact with those events outside our control while they're happening as their events and experiences. So obviously what we want to do is love, so those events, negative, they don't even form memories. So they don't even get to become fantasies and illusions in our life, because we're conscious and self-aware. So when these objects, these mediums, these media, these these messengers, these messages, these objects come into our proximity, we have energy of our heart, so we love, so we shatter them, so they don't even form into memories or negativity, and they don't even get to be part of our conscious mind or the shadow or anything like that, because we deal with them, we neutralize them before they even get to us. As conscious individuals, you see, they stay on the outside. They just stay on the outside. They just stay there because they cannot do anything, right? And what are these? Well, this is hatred, this is fear, this is suffering, pain, all this negativity, destruction, everything that's negative, right? That is not good. That is negative energy. And they form fantasies and illusions and stuff. So when you love yourself, then you understand, you're conscious and self-aware because you love yourself, that you know what love is. It's the highest energy of creation. You feel great. It's all these neurotransmitters, all these hormones, all these pheromones that make you feel incredible. So you know what feeling good is, what loving is. You know what love is because we're benevolent. Our instinct is to love. We live to love and we love to live. So when these events happen, these experiences happen, these objects showed up, these fantasies, these illusions, they come within the proximity of an electromagnetic field, our sensory perception, then we know what they are and we spot them and shatter them immediately. You see, we spot them and shatter them. And so when they show up, we spot them immediately, right? Because we're conscious and self-aware, and we know that that's not love. We know that that's not good. That's negative. So we just love ourselves, and as a result of that, the electromagnetic field of our heart just shatters them, so they don't even get to form memories in our lives. These events don't even get to form part of our memory pools. They don't even have an impression in our lives. They don't even count. They're not part of the so-called shadow or the unconscious mind because we dealt with them so the event doesn't even get to do. So the event and the experience outside of control doesn't even get to form a memory or an impression that gets to become part of our lives. It doesn't trigger the shadow. If there is a shadow, it doesn't really interact with our unconscious mind. It doesn't because we love. So it stays at bay. You see, it comes into our proximity, spot it and shatter it, and it gets disintegrated, and it doesn't even form anything. So you see, that's the ideal state when these events outside our control come within our proximity. So that's the number one part. The second part is that what about all the events that are already in our lives, right? All the memories, all the experiences before we became conscious and self-aware, and we were spotting and shattering these fantasies, these illusions, before we even knew what a fantasy and an illusion was, what these mediums were, what this media was, what these messengers were, what these messages were, these objects looked like. You see the negative nature. So even before that, so in the past when we were younger and all that, before we were conscious and self-aware, well, those events and experiences form memories, right? So those are within our control. So because we're conscious and self-aware now, and we know that love is the highest energy of creation, you see, what we start to do is to forgive ourselves because these memories, so you see, objects will come or events would happen in our lives that would trigger these memories, the shadow, the defense mechanism. So the memory is relieved, the painful memory, the event per se. So when that happens, that we're conscious and aware, so we spot it and shatter it. You see, we spot and shatter the memory. Rather than the object coming into our proximity outside our control as an event and experience, the event and experience within our control becomes the memory that gets triggered by something outside or just by any memories or anything that we see or something, right, that we interact with. So the moment those memories come, then we actively engage. So we love that memory. So we love the moment, we accept it, we forgive, we move on. You see, we heal, we recover, we're grateful for the event, and then step by step, by adding love shatters that fantasy, shatters that illusion, and it renders them obsolete, so they just become memories with no cognitive load in them. There's no emotion attached to it. It's just the essence, it's a trace, the memory itself. So we know what that is for because it's part of our memories, and we just learn and move on and love it. And every time something triggers that memory, it's a positive memory, you see? So it reminds us that we need to love because it allows us to get to this level. So this is a beautiful mechanism, and love is the key, you see? That's why it's peeling the onion, because you're uncovering all these layers, you're peeling all these layers, so you get to the core, which is the true self. Our ability to love, our infinite energy, our nature, understanding our nature, which is infinite love. And when we do that, then we just disintegrate the shadow, integrate the unconscious mind, and all these memories and all these there's just the traces of the event, right, of the essence of it, and that's just a memory to remind us. So we're grateful, and gratitude is this mechanism that allows us to love, to heal, to recover, to accept, to move on, forgive ourselves and others, and accept ourselves and others, and like that to infinity. And this is our true self, and our identity, you see, is fundamental. It truly is extremely important. So this is why I'm making emphasis on this video and talking about it, because there is a lot of fantasies and illusions because of the current times that we live in, and because of that, it's important that I make emphasis again and explain that we are powerful. In the end, we have free will. That's why the book is called Fantasies and Illusions, Compass, the Quest for Infinite Free Will, because we have infinite free will. We are consciousness, we're self-awareness, we have a heart. Our heart gives us life, so we can be intelligent and make our own decisions, sentient. And we have choice and consent. So it's us in the end who choose. You see, because within us is we have the control of our own lives, of the way we feel, the way we react to things. So we can love and know our nature, self-love, which is the beginning of everything, loving yourself. So then we can love all these fantasies and all these illusions. So we shatter them, render them obsolete, so they don't have an impact on our life, because we disintegrate the shadow and we integrate our unconscious mind. So we become even more capable of understanding our nature as a species, which is love and creation. Yeah. So you see, is that it's dealing with all the negativity, all the friction, all the background noise, all the static that comes as a result of not understanding that love is the highest energy and loving it, because of the times we're living. We didn't come with a user manual, but now we do. We have a user manual now. This book, Compass, who we are, the infinite, the quest for infinite free will, and it's available for everyone for free, because this is who we are with the Republic of Planet Earth. You see, this is who we are with the Republic of Planet Earth Constitution. This is our this is our planet. You see, our species is an incredible species. This is an incredible species. We have human heart, so we can stare at the sun. We can evolve. We can use that energy and love to infinity to get to know ourselves and move away from the fantasies and illusions. Know that we're here for a purpose, and our purpose is to find ourselves, so we can choose with a free will our dreams. We choose what we do with our lives, with the love of our hearts, because this is what we're here to do. And this is why I do the things that I do. I make the videos that I make, because I know how important it is for humanity, for us as a species, as the citizens of the Republic of Planet Earth, to know our nature, because our user manual is this. This is our user manual. So, okay. So then let's talk a little bit more about then what make it practical. Provide some examples, right? Proto-meta systems, properties analysis, telemetric thinking, duality principles, so we can understand the nature of these fantasies and illusions, right? So, okay, so what are fantasies and illusions? And these objects, right? These objects that come within our perception. And what are they? Well, they're mediums, media, messengers, and messages, right? Within our control and outside our control. But in order for them to form per se, they come from the outside, right? So they end up being part of the shadow and the unconscious mind if they become memories, if these impressions lead to memories, these events and these experiences, right? Okay, so what is it that they are? Well, so the best way to think of them is to think of them in modern times. So let's use a very modern example. So and let's categorize it. So what's mediums then? What's mediums? Well, a medium is something that is used as a channel to convey a message, information. And remember, because we are conscious and self-aware, we have senses. The way we perceive reality is through perception, our sensory perception. So a medium is something that communicates a message to our sensory perception, our senses. So it communicates, essentially, it signals our senses, whatever signals our senses. And there is an infinite number of mediums. Okay, but let's use an example that is relevant. So think of as smartphones. So a smartphone is a medium. It's a medium because it's a gadget, it's a device, and this device interacts with our senses, right? And why am I using smartphones? Because smartphones are everywhere. We all use smartphones. I'm making this video with a smartphone. So we all have smartphones for the most part, because it's become part of modern life, right? Having smartphones. So you say it's a medium. Okay, but the nature of the smartphone per se, as a gadget, as a technology, is not necessarily negative. It's not that because a smartphone is a medium, then it's just gonna create fantasies and illusions, and that's all it does. Because not necessarily, because smartphones, they're technology, so they're enablers. You see, it's a tool. So they can generate fantasies and illusions, or they can just create the most incredible experiences and events in our lives that have nothing to do with fantasies and illusions. Say, for example, we can communicate with our loved ones, for example, or we can be more productive and create like I'm creating right now, right? So you see, so mediums are not inherently negative or positive. As I said, duality principles, it's important to think in this way, right? Because a medium can be positive or negative. It's depending on the way it's used, okay? The consciousness behind it, the self-awareness behind it, the intention behind it, the way you use the medium. is what matters the most, because remember, we as a species, we're dual in nature, so our duality principles, we can love, we can hate, we can build, we can destroy. So but love is the highest energy of creation, so obviously we want to build, we want to create, because it's the ultimate state, because love is creation, it's life. So when you love, it's the highest energy, so you create the most wonderful things, right? That's why I made this video, because I want to create, and I want to create beautiful things, and I want people to understand this and be part of it, of this beautiful creation. That's why I do this, because I know that love is the highest energy of creation, so I want people to love, right? I want people to love, because by loving, we're all better off. So you see, mediums, and so I'm using the example of a smartphone. So mediums. So like smartphones, you can think of anything. You can think of a book, of a movie, of a song, anything, really, anything. Humans themselves, they're mediums. You see, because we all objects that interact with our sensory perception. But that doesn't make just because you're a medium, it doesn't make you good or bad. It's just duality principles. A medium generates fantasies and illusions, right? Mediums are the ones that generate fantasies and illusions, and the media within them, right? So this is why I'm talking about this. So then, if you understand this, then so let's kind of use this example, right, as a modern day example that we all come to terms with and understand. So this is the case, right? So we have mediums. So the smartphone itself, the hardware per se, the gadget, the device, the technology is a medium, right? Because it interacts with our sensory perception. But then this is mediums, so there's an infinite number of mediums. So let's just show you the layers of mediums within a medium. So that the hardware itself is a medium, right? But then, in order for that hardware to operate, it needs a software, right? An OS, an operating system. And that software itself is a medium of its own, right? It's a medium of its own. That is a medium of its own. So you see, it's a medium within a medium, right? A medium within a medium. Immediately there, right? So we understand this. So we know that. But then, what is it that runs those software? You have a software and the kernel and all that and the OS, but what's in them? So you can actually make use of them. Well, applications, apps, right? And apps themselves are a medium. So an app, for any reason, there's an infinite number of apps, right? It's just so many different apps. So apps themselves become a medium. So you see, it's a medium within a medium within a medium. So 3 layers of mediums, you see, immediately. And just because of this, that doesn't mean that these are negative. Just because there is many layers of mediums, it doesn't make it negative in nature. As I said, duality principles, because these could be, phones are a force of good for the most part, because they make us more productive and they allow us to communicate, right, as a species. So make us productive and all sorts. So if you understand this, right, because you got to be conscious and self-aware that not everything is negative in nature. So there is polarity, right? There's duality principles. So just because something has many layers of mediums doesn't make it bad. But when the more layers you have, the worse the fantasies and illusions. This is important to understand because of the level of complexity. So because there is so many layerings, the embedding is so deep, that makes the fantasy and illusions more powerful and more damaging and more negative. Okay, so then again, so we have an app, right, which is the third layer. But then that app itself has a nature. The app itself has a nature. And it's the nature of the app, the type of app it is, right? It could be a social media app, it could be a platform, it could be a marketplace, it could be a productivity tool, anything, right? So it could be anything. But let's, for the sake of this, let's call this a social media app. You see, so that's the fourth layer. It's the fourth layer. So it's the phone as a hardware, medium number 1. Then the software that runs the hardware, the OS, the operating system, as the second medium within a medium. And then the app installed in the OS, in the software, which is a software of its own, is the third medium, right? Medium within a medium within a medium, 3 layers of mediums. And then the nature of the app is a fourth medium. So in this case, social media, right? So that's 4 layers, 4 mediums. So you see, the fantasies and illusions generated from these mediums are very powerful because it's 4 layers of mediums, right? So I'm not going to give any names of any specific social media. We all know what a social media app is, and we all engage with them, right? So you fill in the blank in your mind. Use your own consciousness and self-awareness, your own intelligence, your own free will to think of any social media app, right? So you see 4 layers. So okay, so far we have only spoken about mediums. But what about the media, right? Because fantasies and illusions, they are mediums and media, these objects, right? That interact. So what's media? Well, media is the message, right? The message that's being communicated in a way, right? The meaning, the symbology, right? What's known as logos, like the meaning, the ethos of something, right? The meaning, the message, the interpretation, the symbology of it, right? That's what the media is, because the mediums per se, they themselves can become media as well. Why? Because say a social media app, right, has its own branding, right? It has its own logo, its own slogan, its own characteristics, the coloring that uses, and the colors, everything that is associated to that app, right? Also the hardware. So if you have a hardware per se, the hardware also becomes media. Why? Because you see, it's the duality principle, is the dual nature of it. So mediums become media. They're the same. It's like the other face of the coin. You see, it's the two-face singular. Is the duality principles of it. Because so say for example, a smartphone, the hardware per se, there's a company manufacturing it, right? And there's a brand behind it, a logo behind it, meaning behind it, the quality of the materials, the design, and that itself is a message. It's media. It communicates a message, right? A status or whatever. So you see, the medium is a media as well. Because the medium, so for example, you grab a phone, and just by having that phone, you associate that phone with something, right? And you associate your memories and all that, and your way you feel about it, because we're sentient, we feel about everything with that medium, right? So you see, so the medium is also media, because it's communicating a message of its own. And then the software is the same, right? The software that runs the phone, right? We know the ones, right? So think about it from that point of view. So then again, that's also a design. And you can also change, you can change the styles and things. You see, there's media there. The media, there's message there, there's meaning there, there's symbology there. There is ethos, there is logos, right? There's branding. There's all sorts of messaging, right? All sorts of media already just at each of the layers of the medium. Right? Each medium it's a media of its own. You see? So it makes it even more confusing. It makes it even more tricky. So it makes it even more complex. Right? So then again, the third layer, the app itself has its own brand, right? You go to an app store or something like that, and you download the app or something, and then it needs to stand out, right? It has its own brand, it has its user base and everything. Right? Colors and everything, right? Everything that is associated with that brand, what people think of it and all that, right? And what that brand is used for and who uses it and all that, right? So then again, that's media, because it's conveying a message of its own. But that's not the purpose of the app, because the app within itself has what the app does, right? Outside their own media that is communicating, which is the branding and all that, the logo and all that. Right, the colors that it uses and whatever, whatever message, like you associate, that app is that, right? And you feel that way about it, right? You see, the media of the app, just by the app being the app, right? So you see, it's the third layer. But the software does the same that runs the app, and the hardware that supports the software, so it works, is the same. You see, everything is association. So it's mediums and media. So everything is, because all of these things they're all interacting they're coming in the proximity of our senses. We perceive them. It's perceptions. You see, the senses are engaging with them. There's an interaction, because we are sentient, so we associate things to memories and everything. Emotions attached to things. So you see mediums and media right there. And I haven't even spoken about what traditional media is, what we know as media, which is an actual message, content, right? So I haven't even gotten to that level of media yet. So I'm just explaining the dual nature, the duality principle of mediums and media, how a medium is a media and media is medium itself, right? So you see, because of that nature. So then again, the fourth layer was the nature of the app, right? Say social media now. You see the app itself media. So the app itself is media, even though it's a medium in the name, social media, right? So you see 4 layers, but in reality it's 8 layers because each of them is a medium and a media. And it's 4 layers, right? The phone, the software running the phone, the app, and the nature of the app. 4. And they all mediums and media at the same time. So you see it's 8 layers. 8 layers of complexity. So that's why this powerful fantasies and illusions generated as a result of these. But just because something is a medium and a media, it doesn't make it negative in nature, because as we know, we can use phones and apps on the phones for very useful things, very powerful things, right? So I'm making this video, which is a powerful good, is a force of good for the world. So you see, very complex, all these layers, right? It's the hardware that I'm using with the camera and the software that runs it, so I can make this video, and then the app that is there that allows me to make the video, and then the nature of the app, this case a camera app, you see, and all the technology that is embedded within it. So you see the mediums and media, right? All of them, but you see it's positive. So it's not that it's negative in nature. So you see, thinking about it, we gotta be objective. So we gotta understand that there is a spectrum and there is the duality principles to everything. So then because it's the nature of reality, duality principles. So okay, so we established this. So then we got these 4 layers. So but then let's talk about what the nature of the app is, say social media. So it's the message route. Now we're talking about messengers and messages, right? The content, the actual media, right? What we know as media. And so that's the message. So a social media app is there to communicate, right? To share information, to share data, to share content. So if this is the nature of it, so then the media itself, right? The media then has this nature. So remember, mediums are media on their own because of the duality of it. It's the other face of it, right? It's a coin with 2 faces, right? It's the duality principle of mediums and media. They're the same. They're both the dual nature. But then again, we're talking about that fantasies and illusions, these objects, right? They're also messengers and messages, right? Because the media, the content, is communicating a message. So when something communicates a message, it's a messenger. But just because you're the messenger, you're not the message on your own. The message is what you're communicating, but you're the messenger. And by being the messenger, that makes you a message on your own. You see, the duality principle applies. Because as a messenger, you represent something. You, as a person, as an individual, or as a piece of content, or as an object, or whatever, media, as a messenger, as a messenger, you represent a meaning. And also, you sharing a message. So which is the message that you're sharing as a messenger. But you see duality principle again. So you see the layering now is deeper because we were 4 layers in. Now the message itself is the 5th layer, right? And the message is shared by a messenger, right, of any nature, and then that's 6 layers. But because the dual nature, then it's not really 6, is it? So the total number of layers is 10 because the dual nature of it, right? So we got 8 layers just by having 4 mediums that are all themselves media. And then when you start to share the message, the actual content, that's media, but the media is messenger. So because of the nature of each, the messenger is it's a message, and the message that you're sharing is a messenger of its own. So you see 10 layers already. And we haven't even gotten to the message that creates the fantasy or the illusion in the first place, right? So 10 layers. So you see, this is why these fantasies and illusions are very tricky, because we're talking about 10 layers, mediums and media, messengers and messages. Because if you really want to think about it, then it's even deeper, many more. It's actually, if you really want to think about it, it's not 10 layers, it's 20 layers. Because a message and a messenger, the medium and the media themselves, right? The mediums and the media themselves, even the hardware itself is a messenger. and it's a message of its own. You see, so it's 20 layers really. So it's very deep. You see, very deep, and it's easy to kind of like ignore, because just by looking at them, like you grab a phone and then you're not thinking about it, right? But you're interacting with 20 layers of mediums and media, messengers and messages, deeply interconnected, right? So you just gotta understand why these form in the first place, these fantasies and these illusions. Okay, so now that I established this, right, as a foundation, as a premise, so then let's talk about it. So let's talk about the content then, right? So say, and what type of, the nature of the content, then that's a layer. Is it an image? Is it a photo? Is it a meme? Is it a video? What is it? An emoji? Right? What is it? Right? There's many natures, right, of content. Many things that we share, right? So you see the music of it, then again, you see the sounds. It's not only video, it's audio and video, right? So you see 2 channels there. So even deeper and deeper. So if you start to add so that's why there is an infinite number of mediums and media, messages, because you got to understand that all these are interacting with your consciousness of awareness, with your perception, your sensory perception. So this is extremely important to account for, because then again, these are where the fantasies and illusions are formed as a result of these mediums, these media, these messages, right? So in the way of content and the nature of that content, right? Because of the duality principle, because it could be a very negative content. And that's what creates the illusion in our minds that leads to all this emotional attachment that is negative, that affects us, right, in our lives, and it's traumatic and it's problematic. It's a problem in society, right? So we understand these. We all understand these, right? That there's problematic content out there. So if we understand this layering, right? So then again, let's talk about an example then. So we established it, right? We're talking about smartphones and social media, right? And all the layers, right? Now, and we understand content. So let's talk about a nature of a content. We're talking about image and video. So let's just, for example, to make it very simple, let's think of a photo, a post, a photo, right? So think of a photo, not even to make it a video, right? Which is more complex because it has audio, right? And it has impressions, many impressions in the frames that move within that video and the audio, right? So an image is static. An image is not even it's not even like a meme, or, well, yeah, if images can be memes, right? A photo can be a meme. So it's just an image, right? An image is one state. It's visual. It's a visual state. So the medium, right? That the medium, the app is sharing that message, which is a messenger of its own, because depending on who shares it, then that's a messenger, right? So there's meaning attached to that, and then there's the message, which is what's being shared. But the message that's being shared is a messenger of its own, because it's the nature of it is to share a message, right? The meaning of it, right? Whatever association is attached to that image, in this case, that we're using as an example, right? Photo or whatever, or a meme, right? So then think about it, right? So then we engage with it, right? The content. Anyway, by just us seeking it, or being notified of it, or scrolling into it, or the algorithm putting it there for us, right? So there's many ways in which you're gonna get to that image, right? But it's loaded because it's all the layers, right, that I have explained, plus the message of its own showing up and all the mechanisms, so the message is running for you so you can interact with it. So say that it's an image and it's of a person, any human, right? Any human. It's a photo of a human, right? And we see this every day because they're everywhere. So, but when you look at that photo, then within the photo itself, within the photo, right, the image, there's layers, right? The media, right? The message, the messenger, the medium per se of it, right? It has symbology, meaning attached to it. Why? And layers on top of it, because it might be that it could not even be a real person. It looks like a person, but it could be generative AI, right? So created by an algorithm, by software. It's not even a real person, but you look at it and you think it's real. So then you associate, and the impression is that you're really seeing a real human. So you see, immediately you're creating a distortion because it might not even be a real human. So you think that's human, but it's not, because it's actually digital. It's created by an algorithm, software, generative AI. Technology creating the conditions for that to look human. And then you think that's a real human. So then again, you see your mind create this that's what a fantasy and illusion is. It generates an illusion because you look at the image and you think that that image is real. It is an image. It is a real image, but the content of the image, the media, the message, the messenger, but it's not, because it could be a generative AI deep fake, right? So that's an example of how you generate an illusion. You see, immediately, because it's not even real. So that's number one. Number two, say that it's a real human, right? Say that it's a real human, which is fine. But you don't know that human, right? You don't know who that human is. You never met them in real life, real person. So you see that photo and you assume that that is the way that human looks. But that could be a highly edited photo. Photoshop, lining, all sorts of touches. And it might just change the nature of that person. And it's not even the real, it's not the way that person looks in real life. That is, say for example, you were to see that person in real life and that person was standing right next to the photo, you wouldn't even know it's the same person. And we all have had experiences like this, that we see a photo and then when we see the person, it doesn't even make any sense, right? Because of that, because then again, it's an illusion. It's not the real person. It's a highly edited version of the real person. Okay, so that creates an illusion of its own. You see, deepfake or generative AI creating that illusion of something that is not even real, portrayed as being real, right? That's the distortion, that's the illusion. Or a person that is highly edited because of lighting, because of Photoshop, because of the way they make up, because of everything that they do, touching the photos, the way they dress and the angles and everything. And then that changes and the person is not even the same person, right? So it just looks like someone completely different if you see that person in real life. So that's the second level of illusions. And then there is a third level, which is the trickiest one, which is the fact that our brain, because our brain thinks, the moment we see a photo, say that it's a genuine photo, and there is not much of an editing on it, and it's not deep fake or generative AI, it's actually a human, and you can tell that it's actually a human. And if you were to see that human in real life, it looks like it, right? Which is a lot of the case for people, right? Most people are just like, that that's them, right? So, but then this is the trick, right? The trick is that in our mind, we start to associate that photo with a real human. So our mind thinks of the photo as the real human, and that as an illusion of its own. Because that's not the real human. In fact, that's just a state of a human in a moment, a memory, right? That's not the human. The human is living somewhere. He's having a life. That's just a highlight, a moment, a take of someone. But we, in our mind, because that's what we interact with, like when we're consuming, right, the content, we think in our minds that image becomes the person. And because in our mind, we think that generates an illusion. And this is the most powerful illusion, because we think that the person is the image. And because of that, we start to associate emotions and feelings to that image. Because of the meaning of it, because of the media, because of the messaging, because of the messenger, because of the mediums, media, the objects, everything. So you see, it becomes an illusion because that photo is not the real person. But we think it is in our minds because that's just the way it is, particularly when you're highly engaged in media all the time. So your mind starts to associate the media as the real thing, even though it's not, because the real human is somewhere else. You see? It might even be an old photo and that person, it's not there anymore. So then you see, still you're associating it with it, right? And if it's a video and you apply the same example to the video as I just did, then even deeper, because it's more meaning, because it's more impressions, it's frames, sounds in them, more movement, more meaning, right? And you can apply any of the examples that I told you to it. So you see, it forms illusion. So the image forms an illusion in our minds because we start to associate the real human with that image. And this is if it's a real human, because what about if it's not even a real human? It's deep fake or highly edited. So we're even creating that this human exists, and this human in real life is not even like that. Right? So it's a big illusion right there, and we think that is real. So we start to engage with it. So what happens is that because we think, so let's get it to that level, right? So that's how illusions are formed. Because the baseline of an illusion is that we start to associate that image or that video or meme or whatever, or emoji or whatever, right? GIF, anything. So whatever content, right? We start to associate the content as the real person or the real thing, right? A cow or house or whatever. So, but we start to think that that is the real thing, when in reality it's not. It's just an image of it. But in our minds, we associate it by being the real thing because it's what we see with our senses, with our perception. So by that creates an illusion. And that illusion, because we think that's the base illusion, that's what sets the scene for an illusional mindset based on distortions and fantasies. Because that is the baseline. So our mind creates the disconnection. It's a divide. You see, it's a schism. So our mind believes it as being the real, and because it does, then it starts to think as if it is, and by doing so, we add emotions to it. That's number one. And if this is a negative emotion because it's a negative image loaded with all this negativity, so then we're creating a fantasy of something that is not even real, and it's negative. On top, it's bad just by thinking that it's real. That's bad because it's an illusion. But if it's a negative one, particularly negative one, then you're adding negativity and meanings to it in your life to something that is not even real. So it's even worse, more toxic, okay? More problematic, more destructive, right? So then that's that, right? But then what happens? Because of our nature is to think, right? Because we think, right? Then we start to think about that image, right? That is not even real. Right? And because that's what we do, we think over the image because we have emotions and we add impressions and meaning to it, right? We have feelings, and because we're reacting on the triggers and everything. So then you start to add thinking to it, and by doing that, then you start to fantasize, meaning you use that image, and that image, which is an illusion or video or meme or GIF or whatever, emoji, doesn't matter, whatever that is, right? That on its own, that image, that illusion, negative, renders fantasies. So the illusion renders fantasies because you're thinking about it, so you start to fantasize over it because that's what our mind does, right? So you fantasize over it. So that illusion renders fantasies. So you're starting to create in your mind new memory. And you see, this is why it's tricky, because all these illusions are memories, right? Attached with emotions. So when you start to fantasize over it, so you're rendering new memories that are not even based on photos, because this is just your imagination. You see, fantasizing. You're fantasizing over the trigger, the memory that created the base illusion. And then that forms, the fantasy becomes a memory, because now you start associating this image with that person in the first place. So it becomes your memory, so you think it's real, so you add meaning to it, right? Triggers and all sorts, negativity, because this is negative in nature. So then when you start to fantasize over those memories that you have of that illusion, then you start to create new memories, but these memories are not illusions. These are worse. These are fantasies. Because they're not even based on that fake that image that created the illusion. These are based on your memories of your fantasies, based on that. So it's even like more abstract. Because it's not even based on that image that you can trace. It's just thoughts and memories. And then you start to create new memories and fantasies about that because of the way it makes you feel and the triggers. And then you start to fantasize and imagine things in your head as a result of your emotional engagement to it and attachment, because you think that's the real person or the real thing. You see? So that's why illusions render fantasies. An illusion renders fantasies, because you're fantasizing over that illusion. So then you see the nature. There's a vicious cycle. So then you have an illusion rendering fantasies, and then in your head, these fantasies become memories in your head, in your mind. So you start to give it meaning, mediums, media, right? Messengers and messages of your own creation that are not even real, based on something that is not even real, right? So you see how it takes you off reality. All this is negative in nature, right? And because we are doing this all the time by consuming all these mediums, all these media, all these messengers, all these messages, right? All this content, then we're doing this in a very fast clip. And we start to, because then what happens? The fantasies start to interact with their own fantasies. So new fantasies based on fantasies. And that's terrible, right? And then what happens? Because the fantasies interact with illusion, the base illusion. So now what you're doing is using that illusion becomes a trigger for all the fantasies. And the fantasies of their own become triggers of their own fantasies. So this is an infinite negative vicious cycle. So it's a vicious cycle of illusions and fantasies and illusions going into infinity in our minds, populating all this rubbish in our heads, right? Negativity, because it's all negative, right? Emotional states that are negative. Trauma, all sorts of stuff, right? Pain, suffering, hatred, all sorts, right? Fear, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so you see, this is very bad. So now, what happens? Because you keep on feeding yourself content, right? Because you have an emotional investment, right? Because you're emotionally invested, right? Because you're reacting to it, you're getting triggered, right? And remember, you have a shadow that is forming fantasies and illusions in their unconscious mind. You're unconsciously, with a shadow, getting triggered and defense mechanisms out of all these emotions and reaction from the fantasies and illusions. But then, because you're consuming new content, then new content, right, becomes new illusions. So these illusions reinforce the older illusions and they become triggers for fantasies and new fantasies form. So this cycle goes to infinity. It's a vicious cycle, destructive. So you see, you're feeding your unconscious mind with all this nonsense. Right? And if you're highly engaged consuming this content, then you're just essentially starting to program yourself with fantasies and illusions, right? Your mind is populated with fantasies and illusions of all sorts. Because the nature of this is very, right? There's an infinite number of mediums, there's an infinite number of media, there's an infinite number of messengers, an infinite number of messages, infinite numbers of interactions, you see. And the problem is that once you're off it, right, you're off it, you're not consuming new more. It's outside the outside of your control that, well, you are kind of engaged in it, so you're consuming it. But once you stop it and it's within your control, you're at home or doing whatever without it, you still have the memories in your head. And they play fantasies and illusions in your head. I go like this, right? This vicious cycle, right, of fantasies and illusions, right? And what happens, right? You gotta understand about the end state of all this. If you keep on feeding it, because you keep on consuming it, right? Then you keep on feeding this monster, right? Because it's more. So more illusions, more base illusions, more fantasizing, new fantasies, and the fantasies now triggering illusions, and he goes like, it's terrible, right? It's terrible. And then you see how it takes a lot of your mind, because your emotions, so your mind space, your memories are packed with fantasies and illusions that are nonsense in the first place. That they got formed by one base illusion that created all these in the first place as the origin, the tracing. You can trace it back to that, right? But because you are adding so many layers of new illusions, then you don't know how to trace it back to the root cause of that caused all that mess. Because then your life becomes that. And then you start to think that your life is that, because you are what you think. So when you start to only think about fantasies and illusions and stuff that you consume all day, then you think your life is that. When in reality, none of this is real. You're just fantasizing over these things. And say, for example, that you were to see that person in real life, then you have all the fantasies and illusions of who you think that person is. And then you have all loaded with negativity. And then it creates all sorts of problems in society. Polarization, division, violence, all sorts. It's a problem. You see, it weaponizes the human mind negatively, terrible. This is not good. It's a problem. So you see, and you know exactly what I'm talking about, because you're human, right? And you know, because we all have done it, right? The only reason why I know this is because I also, suffer from this, right? No one is immune to this. That's why you have to be conscious and within your control to stop them, right? First stop, you stop the outside, all the negativity, right? And then you have to start healing, because then all that created already, right? Because the problem of all these is that if you stay like that, then okay, it's not too bad. But the problem is that because these are real feelings and emotions that you're having, and real thoughts and real memories, they impact your day-to-day life, and they depress you, and they make you feel terrible, and they make you feel depressed, and they make you have fear, pain, suffering, trauma in your real life. And then when you have new memories in real life, outside social media, in real life, you're in real life interacting with real humans, then you start to behave like you would in social media, and the behaviors and the actions and the engagements that you have in there in real life. And this is not okay, because it's unhealthy, because your mind is polluted by all these fantasies and illusions that are making you think that real life is that, when in reality it has nothing to do with it. Nothing to do. Real life has nothing to do with all these fantasies and illusions, because remember, they were an illusion in the first place, based on the perception that you think those were real, because they are interacting with your senses, and your senses think they're real because they're interacting with them, right? So just think about it, and think about all the things that we engage with and do, right? And in real life, right? What we would do in real life, right? What we would do in real life. So the things that we would do in real life as a result of all these fantasies and all these illusions, right? The actions, the behaviors that we engage in real life, thinking that they're the right decisions based on all these, and in reality they're not, and we're just deceiving ourselves and doing things that are actually harmful for us. Because first off, we feel terrible, and you are the way you feel and you think. So if you feel like this all day, then you're gonna act in this negative way. So you're gonna have health effects, and then your relationships in real life would suffer, and everything else would suffer as a result of all these, right? And you don't want this, because you want to love, right? With the opposite of this, with love, right? With highest energy of creation. You see, so I wanted to make emphasis, because all this digital stuff converts into real life, and it's the conversion of both that creates very destructive mechanisms, because you're bringing all these fantasies and illusions to real life, and they're not the same at all. The fantasies and illusions, they're not even real, but you think they are because you feel that they are, because that's what a fantasy and an illusion are. That's what they are. That's what they call fantasies and illusions, right? That's a big problem in society. So you see, and that leads to all sorts of problems in real life. All sorts of problems, right? In real life, because everyone is bringing their own fantasies and illusions to real life relationships that are nothing to do with that, because it's all the fantasizing and all the illusions in the mind, right? That lead to delusional thinking and all sorts of biases and all sorts of fallacies, all sorts of heuristics, all sorts of problems, right? Conjectures of dogma, all sorts of things that happen as a result of the pollution in the mind, right? That make people take the wrong decisions and make the wrong things for their own lives as a result of all this nonsense, right? Okay, so you see, so I made the point. I explained what these are and why this is so negative, because of the layering and the way our mind interacts with that, because of the perception of our senses, the sensory perception. You see, that's why I wrote this book. Precisely because of this, and that's why fantasies and illusions are in the title. Why? Because these fantasies and illusions, you see, by having an impact in our real lives, they stop us from being who we are. Because we are not digital. We're not the digital world. We're not all these. We are real humans. We breathe oxygen, right? We don't breathe bits, right? We're not breathing data, are we? We breathe oxygen. We are alive. We're consciousness, self-awareness, right? We're infinite love, infinite energy, infinite creation with a human heart. This is who we are. So this is why when we understand our nature and understand what fantasies and illusions are and how destructive they are, right? How destructive they are, then that becomes our responsibility, because it's the preservation of the species, the survival of the species, right? Because these things going against our nature, right? They're destructive in nature. So, right, that's why the fantasies and illusions. So you see, that's a problem. And everyone who's watching this video understands precisely what I'm talking about, because you have brains. We all do, right? We're smart humans. Humans are smart. We're an intelligent species. So, okay, so understand that, right? So you understand these. And by understanding this, you see, by understanding this very basic principle based on objective reality, then you start to understand that that's why, that's the title of the book, but then it's called Compass. The quest for infinite free will, you see? Because what's free will? Well, free will is our choice. Free will is our consent, is our decisions, here and now, with our actions, right? And we have an infinite number of those because we're infinite in nature, because we're infinite love, infinite energy, infinite creation, because we are the creation of the universe. This is what we are. Infinite. The universe, as we know, is a creator, and the creator is infinite energy, spherical energy. That's why the sun is spherical in nature. But there's not one universe. It's an infinite number of universes, because infinity creates an infinite number of universes. We just happen to inhabit one of them. And the creator is infinite energy, spherical energy is the sun. You see, and he created us. That's why we have an electromagnetic field that's spherical, just like the sun's. The singularity of the sun, right? And who we are, they're the same. The human heartbeat is the biological creator, right? It's the human heart is a pulse of life, the pulse of creation. It generates the electromagnetic field that is just spherical nature, like us. We're light spherical energy. This is who we are as a species. This is who we are. So we're infinite love, we're infinite energy. The highest energy of the human heart is love. So you see, that's why love is the energy that shatters all these fantasies and all these illusions. Because these fantasies and illusions are not real, they're just pestering in our minds. And then we can create new ones by outside our control, by engaging with all these mediums and media, these messengers, these messages, right? All those objects, events, and experiences in our lives, right? Because remember, these fantasies and illusions that happen, say, digitally first, but then they manifest in real life because, why? Because you're attracting them in your life by interacting with them and thinking in that way. So when the events and experiences in your real life happen, then you associate them and then you relive those fantasies and these illusions. So how do you stop this, right? Because we need to stop it. We need to stop the fantasies and illusions. So we are here to live our lives here and now. Take purposeful daily action with our own hands and breathe oxygen and eat food and breathe and live, right? Because we live to love and we love to live. So we need to understand this, and this is what compass is. We are compass. Each and one of us is a compass. You see, directional compass. We get to our destinations, and we do this with our free will. We identity and true self, right? We're compass. This is who we are. Identity and true self is a primary element because you need to understand who you are first. The user manual. We're infinite love with the human heart. We're infinite consciousness and self-awareness. You need to understand where we're from. We come from the epicenter of the universe. The central sun of the universe is our sun. It's the singularity of the universe. This is where we're located. You need to understand this. You see, the energy that creates everything comes from the central sun of the universe. And that happens to be our sun, the creator. Right? Our planet is orbiting the central sun of the universe, the first sun, the son of sun, sun, the sun that created everything. All the light in the universe came out of our sun because it's the singularity of the universe. And the universe, as we know it, is an electromagnetic field, and it has an infinite number of points on the surface of it. And by that, those points meet at the singularity, and the singularity is the epicenter, which is the heart of it, which is the central sun that creates everything. And we happen to inhabit the proximity of the central sun of the universe, which is one universe out of an infinite number of universes. So you see, so we are this species. We're a very special species because we happen to be the species at the epicenter of everything, which makes us the central species, the first species. We're the most ancient species, the oldest species. This is who we are. This is who we are. This is what the human race is. We're the most ancient species. We're the oldest species in what we know as the universe. because we come from the proximity of the central sun that created everything in the first place. So we were the first life form that evolved into infinity because we have an infinite number of cycles to do so. Why? Because we came before everyone else. Because everyone was created after us because we were the first light. We were at the epicenter and everything moves out and we were right there already because we were the first one. Because our sun is the central sun. You see? This is who we are. We're this incredible species. Right? We're infinite energy because the energy of the central sun is infinite energy, right? From infinity that created the universe in the first place. And that feedback loop of that singularity, that energy, we consume it. We stare at the sun and that energy comes through our eyes. We breathe the oxygen, we eat the food, and we drink the water. And all these elements come from the sun. So by understanding this, that means that we are the biology of infinity because we're in the closest proximity with the energy of infinity ourselves. We're the biological expression of infinity. This is who we are as a species. This is the species that we are. This is the species that we are. You see, we are the consciousness and self-awareness of infinity itself, of everything that exists. Our DNA stores all the information that exists in infinity because all the energy of infinity comes out of the singularity, the central sun, the energy, the light that creates everything. Why? Because all the electromagnetic field, all the points on the surface of the electromagnetic field, which is the universe itself, that singularity, the central sun that creates everything, so fills the space structure of the universe, all those points are meeting there. And those points are meeting at that point, which is energy release. And we are the biology that consumes all that energy. So that means that our DNA is that contains the energy of everything because we're so close to the proximity of everything. So we have evolved into infinity. We're the most ancient species. We're the first species, right, to evolve into light spherical energy, who we are, because we're the image of the creator. And the creator is the central sun that created everything in the first place. Spherical energy. Look at the sun, it's spherical energy. So, and I have provided all the mathematics and all the proofs to this, by the way. Everything is already provided, so you can review and verify everything that I talk about. Everything is verifiable. I have provided mathematical proofs, physics, right? So everything is there, right? Objective reality. I'm just talking about what I know. So because this is who we are as a species. So because this is who we are, right? And this is our nature. So then you gotta understand that we are this biology, we're this life form at the epicenter of the universe. So we are infinity ourselves. Our consciousness and self-awareness is the consciousness and self-awareness of infinity because we're the vehicle of infinity ourselves by becoming the life form that can hold infinity within our DNA structure. This is why we have an electromagnetic field that is electrical and energy. So energy. You see, our electromagnetic field is the human heart. The primordial instinct is the instinct to exist of the human species, and that is the human heartbeat. The pulse of life, the pulse of creation. It generates the electromagnetic field. And this is a spherical energy surrounding the human body, which is contained within the space structure density of the electromagnetic field is the human body. And this comes from the heart. The heart is the epicenter. Just like the sun is a singularity and the epicenter of the universe, our sun, we are the same at the scale, biological scale of our own body. So the epicenter of our electromagnetic field, think of our electromagnetic field as our universe, because it's what it is. The epicenter of it is our human heart, right? It's where the energy comes from. It's our sun, really. It's powering the whole body, so we're conscious and self-aware, and we know that things exist. And the highest energy is love. So it's the highest energy of creation, right? It's what allows us to be able to manifest our free will and be conscious and self-aware and intelligent and sentient. Because we live to love and we love to live. These are our instincts, right? So understand these. So you gotta understand these principles. These are fundamental principles to understand, right? These are fundamental principles to understand because of the value of what they are for what they are, which is objective reality. So you see at the epicenter of the sun, right, is the energy. The highest, brightest point releases all the energy into creation, and all the galaxies are forming and all life forms as a result of us. So then what? Then what? Well, we're the same at the biological scale. So what's the highest energy at the epicenter of the human heart? Love is the highest energy. This can be measured at the labs, right? This is proof for this. So you see, it's love. So love is what allows us to create with the highest energy. So this is why love is the energy that shatters all the fantasies and all the illusions. Because when you love yourself, all right, it starts with self-love. When you love yourself, then you're capable of understanding that you are much more than just content or like fantasies and illusions or negativity. You understand that you are the epicenter of the universe yourself, because we are. And because we are these, then we know that love is the highest energy of creation. And when you love, then you follow your heart, signs and signals, because when you love, you feel great, right? We're the biology of infinity. When we love, we feel good. Neurotransmitters, pheromones, right? Hormones, homeostasis, symbiosis, right? Who we are as a species, right? Synergistic symbiotic homeostasis, meaning the perfect balance, coherence, harmony, right? When you love, is that. When you love, we are that, right? That's when we love, that's who we are. So by understanding this principle, then you understand that it's love, right? It's energy. Love is energy. So when you love, right? When you love, then you're generating a signal of energy, an impulse, right? A pulse of energy. And that energy is highest energy that we can create. So thoughts come from our consciousness, they're memories, right? They're signals. So they're negative, they're fantasies and illusions, right? Negativity, positivity. So love is the highest energy, which means it's a positive energy of creation. It's polarized in nature, it's spherical in nature. So when it encounters fantasies and illusions, right, it shatters them. It shatters them. Why? Because it's the highest energy. It's the highest energy, it's biological energy. It's the highest energy there is, because we're the biology of infinity. So you see, it's the love of our hearts. So when we love with our hearts, with all our hearts, with all our mights, right? Because we love ourselves and we want to feel good, and then we don't. There's all this negativity, all this trauma, all these events, all these fantasies, all these illusions, right? So when you love with your heart, then you start to shatter them because of the frequency, you see. And what is this? How do you shatter them? How does this work? Well, you love yourself. So when you love yourself and you have that memory, right? Because it all starts with the things within your control. So it starts the memories, right? That were formed with all these fantasies and all these illusions, right? All these fantasies and all these illusions were formed, right? And they are within your control now, because the events and the experiences are over, but the memories remain. And they're packed, right? All these triggers, the shadow in the conscious mind, in the unconscious mind, and all that, right? All these defense mechanisms, right? So, but what are you doing? Well, what you're doing is, because you love and you're conscious now of love, then when a memory comes, you love the memory because you love yourself, you see? And how do you love a memory? Well, you forgive yourself. You accept yourself. You accept the memory, you forgive the memory, right? You heal, you recover, you move on. You're grateful for the experience because it allowed you to understand your nature, to get to this level. So you see all these fantasies and illusions, they're like objects now coming to your mind, right? And they start to manifest, right? Because why? Because it's energy, you see, positivity is attracting negativity, is polarity. So when you love, then you start to attract all these memories, right? So because you're freeing up energy. Because remember, all these memories, they all come together in the way of the shadow, which is this lifeless form in the back of our minds, our conscious mind, which is it's all these triggers and all these mechanisms based on all new events and experiences outside our control and within our control, these objects. When we relive these memories, we cast the shadow, we project the shadow. It's called shadow projecting, right? So you project your unconscious mind and all that based on this trauma, based on these events. So essentially, when you start to love yourself, it's high energies, positivity. So what it does is, by shattering an illusion, then it frees up all that energy, right? Because the shadow, right, is just static, right? It's lifeless. It's not conscious. It's not self-awareness. It's just all these memories together in the unconscious mind, right? The back of our heads, right? Just because they're negative energy, right? The cognitive load, right? The pessimism, all this negativity, this fear, hatred, all that pain, suffering, trauma, right? And what is that? Well, that's negative energy. So the way you gotta think of it is like low vibration, right? Very negative energy, self-destructive in nature, right? It's tension. That was where you stress. When you stress, it's tension, right? It's all this tension, all this negativity, all this tension, right? So it's tension, it's stress, right? Stress, tension, right? So it's tension, it's stress, right? It's stress, it's tension. And all this stress and tension is like low vibration, right? It's destructive, right? It's static, it's background noise, right? It's what it is, it's friction, right? It doesn't allow us to operate in homeostasis, symbiosis, right? So when you love, then is that energy of high energy. So when one of those memories show up, right, gets triggered, right, as an event from the shadow defense mechanism, projects it, and then you consciousness of so you spot and shatter. That's when spotting and shattering. So you spot and shatter that fantasy, that illusion, that memory, that within your control, right? You immediately, because you love yourself, say, no, this is not gonna do anything to me. So because you love yourself, then you heal, you recover, and then when you put that energy, then boom, you shatter it. And by doing that, you're releasing the energy within it, right? And that energy creates a vacuum. And that vacuum is filled by what? Well, all the new negativity coming in, all the new memories that were, remember, because all these fantasies, all these illusions, they trace back to root causes, root trauma, right? Root cause trauma, events that were the original events that triggered all the, because all the triggers come as a result of an event, right? The base illusion that I explained earlier. So they all attach to this base illusion. All these fantasies, all these other illusions, all these triggers, all this negativity, all this friction, all this background noise, all this static, all this destructive force, the shadow itself is attached to base illusions. So when you start to hit the surface of it, boom, right? It's like peeling the onion, right? You start to uncover and you start to cry because of emotions and all that, right? Because you're dealing, you're healing, you're recovering, right? You're grateful and all that. It's catharsis, right? It's therapeutic in nature. So you see, you love yourself, you love the memory. So when it comes, spot and shatter. So you shatter with love, right? You heal, you recover, right? It's your own mind. You're fighting in your mind with all this stuff, right? It's coming to you. It's magnetism of the mind, right? Your polarities. The positivity attracts the negativity because of polarity. So love hits it. Boom. Destroys it, creates a vacuum, and that vacuum needs to be filled, right? And what fills it? Well, the memory that precedes that memory, that fantasy, that illusion, is it leaves a trace. It leaves a trace, a memory trace, and they're all connected to an event, to a situation that formed that idea, that formed that thought, that formed that belief, that formed that fantasy, that formed that illusion, right? So when you start to hit them, you're peeling the onion, right? You're starting to peel the onion because you're hitting them, boom, 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 boom. And by doing that, then you see, you start to free up more energy. And by you're creating a massive vacuum because you're freeing up all this energy. You're starting to pull, because it's a vacuum, it pulls all the big ones. Then you start to deal with the big emotions and the way of memories and triggers that start to show up, right? Oh my goodness, this is why, and this is what happened, and I remember. But now you have the strength, the love in your heart to forgive, to accept, to move on, to recognize, to be mature, to be humble, to be, to accept. Okay, so that's what that is. Oh, okay, you see. Okay, I'm better now. I feel good now. You see, oh, that's not good. But look, I'm feeling better now, you see. You do a little bit of crying, whatever you gotta do, right? And then that goes, and then you see you're feeling all these vacuums because you're shattering them, and then the energy gets dissipated. And by getting dissipated the energy, the electromagnetic field ceases to exist. So the memory just connected to the other memory, and because it creates a vacuum, it attracts the memory that kind of like built up on top of it, the layers. The layering. Why is it layering? Because mediums and media, duality principles, double face, dual face, dual nature, right? Messengers and messengers, dual nature, right? And it's layers and layers and layers and layers and layers of all these, right? And they all become memories. So you see, they're all connected because it's layering. So when you hit one, you're hitting the whole layer, and until it gets to the source, boop. And then when you hit that one, that's a big one. When you hit the base illusion, boom, you hit it, you're shattering it with the energy of love because you love yourself, right? You want to heal, right? You want to heal. You're loving yourself. You hit that one, then that creates a massive vacuum because you're pretty much hitting the shadow now. You're hitting the shadow, so you're disintegrating the shadow now. The defense mechanisms that actually allow the projections to happen in the first place. So you start to become conscious of your nature, so you become self-aware. And that's what self-love is. Self-love leads to self-awareness, which is knowing yourself and how you react and all these. And because of this, then you start to deal with the biggie ones, the very big ones, the big traumas in your life, the big fears, right? The big things, right? The big things, the really big things that paralyze you and stuff, then you start to deal with them. because you're hitting them, shattering them, spot and shatter. And because you're more conscious now and self-aware, now you identify them immediately, right? And they just start to cease to exist. And they just become memories, right? They trace. And then eventually, once you hit the shadow really hard, then a lot of those memories that just you start to love those memories because you see wow, that event, that person, that situation, that day, that experience allowed me to grow to be the person that I am today. And then you start to feel love for those people, if there's people involved, because you love yourself. Because you love yourself, now you can love others, you see. It starts with us. And then the memories and all that. Therapeutic, catharsis, all that, right? It's all that, right? You see, that's how it is. So that's what spot and shatter is. It's part of exercise 10, I think, spot and shatter premise, which is exercise 10 or 11. So you see, all this is documented. I just wanted to, as part of the book, just wanted to make this video to really talk about it because it's fundamental, you see. It's fundamental that we address all these. That we do, right? That we do address these, right? That we address it because we all have fantasies and illusions, right? But we all compass because we all have a human heart. And we're not only compass, we're sundial too. You see, we have eyes to stare at the sun, so all that energy of infinity, the central sun of the universe, comes straight into us. Right? So the central sun of the universe comes straight into us. And that energy allows us to love more so we can have the energy of the sun of infinity to power our love. And then we hit those fantasies and illusions even harder. Because eventually you don't want to have more fantasies and illusions. You want to be clear of your fantasies and illusions. So you disintegrate the shadow, which means you integrate your unconscious mind. So you're fearless. So there's no fear in your life. And all these new fantasies and illusions, all these objects wanting to form events and experiences in your life, wanting to, have some kind of like negative effect, or they won't because you love yourself, so they won't. They won't be able to. They can't. They can't because you love yourself, and love is the highest energy of creation. And when you love yourself, which is the highest energy of creation, all this negativity doesn't have a hold of you anymore. Because you're love, and love is the highest energy because now you understand your nature, the user manual compass. So this infinite virtual cycle of compass and sundial, because we harness the energy of the sun by staring at the sun. So it comes straight into our eyes. So that energy through the iris goes into all our body cells. And by going into our body cells, and we love them, see, it's the highest energy outside the body, which is the sun energy, right? The central sun of the universe, where we inhabit, right? We're a very lucky species. We happen to be at the epicenter of everything. We're the granddaddies of the universe. We're the oldest species there is. Because we've been around for the longest. That's why we're so developed and so incredible as an organism. We're the organism of infinity. So you see, it's the highest energy of creation, sunlight, right? Coming straight into our bodies. And then because we love, it's the highest energy within, which is love. So you see, it's the two highest energy, the one outside and the one within as one. And with that energy, then really no effects. So and that's it. That's where you want to get. You want to get to a state where you clear all the fantasies and illusions. Because when you clear all the fantasies and all the illusions, right? When they all clear, right? When they're all clear, right? When there is no more fantasies and no more illusions, what happens? Remember, this is the shadow. It's all this nonsense, right? The background noise, all the static, all the friction in the back of our heads. We integrate our unconscious mind. We know who we are. We're infinite love, infinite energy, infinite creation. We're compasses. We're identity and true self with purpose. We're time and energy, right? We're action. We're why, how. We're flow. We're true north and destination. We're the highest energy of creation. We're the highest of everything, right? The epicenter of everything. We're the highest energy of love, who we are as a species. And because this is who we are as a species, then we manifest our free will. You see, the book's name is Fantasies and Illusions, Compass, the quest for infinite free will, because it's a quest, right? You're dealing with all these fantasies and these illusions to find yourself, your true self, your identity, your purpose. So you are happy and you love what you do every day. Take purposeful daily action. And destination, right? Make your dreams come true. Your purpose comes true. You manifest them. It's all these things, right? It's all these things, right? It's this infinite energy of creation, this infinite energy of positivity, because love makes you feel so great. And that's the whole idea, right? Because when you disintegrate the shadow and you integrate your unconscious mind, and there is no more fantasies and illusions in your life, you're pure love because you freed up all that friction, all that static, all that background noise. And when you do that, so what is the meaning of that, right? So what is the meaning of that? Well, when you do that, you freed up all that energy. You freed it up, right? So now you can love with that energy. You love. And love is creation. It's the highest. We make love, we have children. We love our children. It's our instinct to love our children, right? And we love ourselves. We feel good. We love others now. We can love others. We love ourselves. We love others. We're not, all these fantasy solutions, all these nonsense, they don't have a hold over us anymore. So we can love humans in real life, right? We can love these humans in real life, right? And we just love and love and love and create and create and create. And that's what we do. And that's what we do because love is the highest energy of creation. So when you start to create with your love, then you live in your purpose. The moment you start to love yourself, that's the moment you live in your purpose because the heartful flow states is the signs and signals of the human heart. We follow our heart, what makes us feel good, right? And we do that, that's our instinct, right? Because we cleared up all these fantasies and these illusions. So we have infinite energy now to create whatever our creations are because each person is different, right? We all have a personality and identity and true self. We choose with our purposeful daily action what we engage on, whatever we are, our purpose, right? So I have explained, this video is a lot of information, right? A lot of wisdom, and it's all being shared. So you can start and watch it from whatever level you want and read it. And it's a visual book, but it's also the visuals there and the writings as well. I have written as well. I have written the Constitution of Planet Earth as well, which is part of this because by freeing ourselves up from all these fantasy illusions, we have been able to found the Republic of Planet Earth, which is us. You see, if you're a human and you have a heart, then you're a compass and a sundial, which means that you are a citizen of the Republic of Planet Earth because this is our planet. This is who we are. We're an incredible species. We're the epicenter of the universe. And this is our planet. You see, this is our planet. Well, we actually created our planet. We created our planet because we're the infinity ourselves. We just forgot that we did, but not anymore because we have been able to unlock our DNA memories to remember who we are as a species. Because we're infinite love, infinite energy, infinite creation. This is who we are. We're an incredible species. We're the human race. This is who we are. And these are great times. These are the best times because we're in the billions now. We've never been that many. And now we can all love and create, right? So read about your freedoms. Understand your nature. Understand who you are, that you're infinite love, infinite energy, infinite creation. This is who you are. This is the human race. This is our race. This is our planet. You see, this is who we are. An incredible species, the most remarkable species you see. And that's why you clear up all the fantasies, all the illusions, and it's just love, it's compass, sundial, who we are. I know the infinite virtual cycles that come as a result, the pineal gland, the pituitary gland, gamma energy, plasma energy. I've been talking about a lot lately, all these infinite virtual cycles. You see, it's all about this in the end. It's all about understanding who we are as a species, our nature. And it's love that allows us to deal with all that, to deal with the negativity, because we're infinite love. It's who we are. It's our nature. We are the human heartbeat. We're the biological singularity. This is who we are. You see, we are an incredible species. We truly are a remarkable species. The human race is the most remarkable species. It's the most incredible species. We are the epicenter of the universe. We are the most ancient species, the oldest species. In fact, all the information of the universe is contained within us because we're the DNA of infinity, you see. All the energy of the central sun contains all the energy of everything because it's the electromagnetic field of the universe is an infinite number of points on the surface of it. And they all feed to the epicenter because the singularity is the singular point where all points meet. And our central sun is the singularity of the universe. So all those points are feeding back to it, which is energy, right? Feedback. And that energy is released in the way of light. And we are the biology that consumes it, which means that by consuming that energy, we're consuming the energy of everything that exists. So it's storing our DNA. So this is who we are. Our DNA contains everything that exists. We are the consciousness and self-awareness of infinity ourselves. This is the species that we are. You see, because of love, because love is the highest energy of creation. And this is why we are who we are, this incredible species. And this is our planet. This is the Republic of Planet Earth. You see, so my videos are about love, infinity, creation, energy, because we're infinite love, infinite energy, infinite creation. Why? Because this is who we are. Just like the sky is blue because we see the blue light when it hits the atmosphere coming from the sun. This is the case. The biological singularity is the human heart, and the highest energy of the human heart is love. And we are the image of the Creator, which is infinity. Infinity is spherical energy, and the sun happens to be the singularity of this universe, which is a universe of an infinite number of them. And we happen to be the biology at the epicenter of the central sun of this universe. This is who we are. We are the granddaddies of the universe. We're an incredible species. We're the human race. We're an amazing species. We are. So you see, it's all about love. So you need to love. Love with all your heart, all your might, self-love. Everything starts there. You see, I have provided all the information through the 10 dimensions that lead to true self at the core of it, at the heart. True self boundaries, self-love, self-awareness, everything that allows us to understand our nature as a species. So the whole idea of this is so you can stare at the sun, you grab all that energy through our eyes, and you love with the highest energy of your love. So you unlock the key. Love is the key that unlocks our DNA structure, our DNA memories. Because remember, we're the DNA of infinity. Everything is contained within us. So what is the meaning of this? Well, the meaning of this is very simple. The meaning of this is that because this is who we are, when we love, we tap into our DNA memories, which means we unlock our own personal memories and our ancestors' memories and all the memories that we want to of universe. And by doing that, then we live the lives that we want, which is to create to infinity. Because this is who we are. And when you love, you want that because you want to feel the greatest. And we're infinite evolution. This is the beginning. When you stare at the sun, we evolve into infinity because there's more than just what meets the eye with the light spectrum. There's an infinite amount of energy and energy types and hierarchies and spectrums and frequencies of energy above violet light. Gamma is the beginning. And we can just tap into gamma. We can tap into gamma and evolve. Use plasma energy and manifest our thoughts and consciousness as we used to in the past, before we went dormant as a species. Okay, and why did we go dormant? Why did we go dormant and why did we forget who we are? Because of fantasies and illusions. Because fantasies and illusions ended up, doing what they did because of the nature that led us to a state of density in which our consciousness of awareness kind of forgot of who we are because of how old we are. How ancient. You see, we're infinitely old. We're the most ancient of them all. And because we are, then fantasies and illusions ended up, coming full circle. So we came to this level of self-awareness so we can understand what those are. So by identifying them and dealing with them, by shutting them with the energy of love, then we all ascend one more time to our status, which is the central race. Because the human race has awoken. We have risen once more because we're the human race. This is who we are. We're this incredible species, the most amazing species. Creators of universes. This is who we are. We manufacture planet Earth with our spherical technology, and you access it with the energy of your love. You see, we're the most ancient species. We have created galaxies. We have created universes with the singularities that generate them in the epicenter because we harness the energy of infinity with our technology, and everything is stored within our DNA. Because we're the most ancient species that we've been able to evolve into these. We're the human race. This is who we are. Humanity, I love you all with all my heart, with all my might. And my videos are about love, infinity, creation, because it's the highest energy there is. And this is exactly who we are. I really love you all with all my heart, with all my might. I love you all with all my heart, with all my mind. Remember, this video is about that. It's understanding fantasies and illusions. I love you all with all my heart, with all my might. I love you all. I'm so rare.